Good evening, everyone. Guys, so United States mercenaries have just had the green light to operate in Ukraine. This comes as it looks like Donald Trump's about to pull funding from the Ukrainian conflict. You've got the tensions with Iran, and the streets of the United Kingdom look like they could burst into a civil war literally any day now. Potentially, there's a flashpoint for tomorrow at Remembrance Day. So, guys, before we get into this and talk about the green light of U.S. mercenaries being, having the thumbs up to operate in Ukraine, what I want to quickly mention is the situation that we're facing right now and global tensions. And I want to be quite clear and just reiterate what I've been saying all along. No, Donald Trump is not going to bring peace in Ukraine. Yes, Donald Trump is going to have a war with Iran. Guys, this has been writings on the wall from day one, week one, and I've been saying this all along. There's a lot of hysteria in the media at the moment. A lot of people saying, wars averted, we've averted X, we've done this, we've done that, and all hailing Donald Trump. Guys, listen, I would have voted for Donald Trump if I was in America. The reality is we are heading to a global conflict now of an industrial scale that I don't really see any way that people can back out of this now. So what I'm going to do before I go on to the mercenaries be operating inside Ukraine, what I want to do is I just want to read you guys a few of the headlines about the rhetoric that's coming out of on the mainstream about Iran and Trump and how this is all building up. And this to me just reminds me of the build up to the Iraq war in 2003. So I'll just read you these articles, guys, and then I'll come on to the one that I think is the most relevant. US charge man over alleged Iranian plot to kill Trump. Iran wants war with the United States. Trump assassination attempt. 3 men charged over Iran-linked plot. 2 arrested. 1 remains at large over our alleged scheme to kill former President Donald Trump, who is expected to expand sanctions on Tehran and give Israel a blank check. And then there's this one here, guys. So this is the one that I've been telling you about for such a long time. As soon as this one popped up, I said, guys, listen, we need to watch this because this is going to develop into a huge story. And by huge story, I mean people are going to add to it because it's got meaning, because it's got identifiability. When you're looking at these stories, they need to be identifiable. It's like anything, you need branding, you need a USP, and you need something you can focus on. So this is the story that I spotted weeks ago when it just raised its head, and I said, this is going to develop into something absolutely huge. Where are we? There we are. Fears grow that woman arrested for undressing in Iran could be tortured in psychiatric unit. So remember this woman, guys, and I, straight away I said this is what's going to develop into this is what's going to develop into the story that develops into the protests, that develops into the grassroots movement in Iran, that develops into the protests on the streets in Iran, people waving United States flags. And then you're going to see, the government in Iran come down on these guys hard. Then you're going to see media reports coming out of Iran saying, we just want our human rights. We have no rights. We've got no human rights. We don't have freedom of speech, freedom of expression. So I'll just read the first paragraph out to you guys, and then we'll talk about what it means on the on the wider scheme of things. Human rights organizations say they are gravely concerned that a young Iranian woman arrested for stripping down to her underwear could be subject to torture after she was transferred to a psychiatric hospital by the authorities. So there isn't really. So let me come off this. So there isn't really any evidence in this story. Now, it's just speculation. It's just hearsay. There's nothing in that story. And they've made a whole story out of absolutely nothing. There's no evidence there, guys, okay? But remember what I always say. doesn't matter about the truth. It's the perception of that truth. So if people in the West believe that women are being tortured because they want, they don't want to wear a hijab a certain way, or they don't want to wear a hijab at all, that's got meaning in the West. That has identifiability in the West. That's going to have it's going to bring all these, all these liberals who are, oh, Trump bad, Trump naughty, Trump evil, Trump bad. As soon as Trump starts saying, what, we want to, these women in Iran, we want to give them some, some good old freedom. Sorry, guys, I'm laughing because I can remember I can remember a meme where he says, I think it's like a Somalia meme or something. He says, oh, Somalia just discovered oil. Looks like those guys need some freedom. But this is one of those things that's going to develop, and it's gonna escalate way out of control. Remember, Trump only won the presidency on the 5th of November. Things are escalating really quickly now, and you've got to understand this rhetoric that's being put in place. Once these things get traction and these movements grow and grow, you're going to see this movement in Iran, guys. I can guarantee it. And nobody's talking about this. I am literally going against what everybody else in the mainstream media is saying. I'm going against what all the commentators are saying. I'm going against pretty much everyone, really. And that's what's going to happen. The situation in Iran is going to lead to a set of circumstances where Donald Trump has to have a war with Iran, and Donald Trump has to have US boots on the ground in Iran. That's the only way you can take Iran. The only way you can stop the Iranian nuclear program, which is what this is all about, is with boots on the ground. Boots on the ground, nothing else. You can't do this from the air. You can't do this from the sea. You have to do this on land. You have to have an expeditionary force move in there. You have to have them land. You have to have them make a beachheading. Then from the beachheading, you can bring more logistics. You can bring more support in, and then you can push forwards to these nuclear, these nuclear facilities. I don't know where they are. I'm 99% certain America doesn't know exactly where they are. What they will know is where the entrances are. Now, if you're digging one of these deep underground military bases into, in underneath the mountain, the entrance can be in location X. But then you could have a tunnel for 20 miles before you actually get to the, the facility. So bombing these locations, bombing the entry point, it's pointless, because that's more than likely, that's not where the actual facility is. The facility will be way, out of range of, airstrikes on that location. It's just basic tactics, guys, okay? And this all comes back from 2003, when the Iranians will have seen the mass air power that the United States can bring to bear. So what are they going to do? They're just going to go underground. Once you go underground, all the air power becomes absolutely irrelevant, and you need boots on the ground. So they're going to have guys going into these tunnels, blowing through the doors, going room to room clearance in those tunnels, and making sure those facilities are secure. That's the only way you can do it. And remember, guys, this was written into US law in November 23. So it's kind of an inevitability that this has to happen. So in the United Kingdom, then, right now, it's, we have got a situation where tomorrow, so I have left this video a bit late because I want to see if there's any more information come out on it. But tomorrow is Remembrance Day. Now, there's a pro-Palestine anti-war march, whatever. I don't know what they're calling it now. But this is, councils and local governments have allowed these protests to go ahead. On Remembrance Day, they've allowed these protests to go ahead. Now, I'm sitting here and I will be absolutely broken if the chant that means all sorts of things that people always chant when they're doing things in certain demographics. It sounds like Alan's snack bar. Guys, if we hear these chants when we're having our 2-minute silence, I don't know how people are going to feel. I certainly don't think there's going to be a violent reaction, but there's certainly going to be some guts wrenched. Now, when people don't have the ability to vent, When people don't have the ability to express themselves, this is the problem. So right now in the United Kingdom, it seems that if you are, if you are against all this stuff that's being forced on our country, you are not allowed to protest. You're not allowed to write things on social media. You're not allowed to do anything, or you'll be sent to jail. And people are rightly scared. But that's not gone away. That feeling of resentment hasn't gone away. And it's going to get to a point, guys, it will get to a point. You've heard of the expression like a cornered lion's a cornered animal's the most dangerous. This is exactly what we mean by, you need people to be able to let off and to be able to vent. Because you can imagine it now, the next time there's one of these atrocities, or maybe not the next time, maybe the time after that, or the time after that, there's an incident involving young girls, because it always seems to be young girls that get involved in these incidents. But the next time, maybe a Christmas market, maybe whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. But once people reach and go over those, step over that boundary, they think, right, okay, well, I'm on a protest now. If I get caught, I'm going to prison. So they just go for it. They go absolutely wild, and they will. And that's why, I did a video on our live yesterday. I said civil war, and people are saying, "No, you wouldn't be able to have a civil war." Yes, you would. Right? It wouldn't be a civil war like like there was in the United States. It would be mass protests, people turning up en masse, overturning police stations, overturning government buildings, and just going absolutely crazy. Because once people know, as they do now, that if they put a Facebook post or if they're seen at a protest and they are angry, once they know that they're going to jail for a long time, they're just going to push that through, and they are going to fight like their life depends on it, because it does. And that will reach critical mass, and you will see, mass protests at those gates in Downing Street. I can remember when I think it was Tommy Robinson. He was arrested, and there was a huge protest at the gates of Parliament. I know I think I can say now, I've been told, and on good authority, that the military moved into Downing Street at that time, ready to evacuate the Prime Minister and the and all the staff. So guys, we've already been really close to this happening. Now, can you imagine the scenes and how other people would feel like if they're seeing these things? Imagine right now how resentful people are that they're being subjugated and segregated in their own country. Native people are being treated like second-class citizens in their own country. Can you imagine that feeling of resentment that's building up slowly over time, slowly, and building up further and further? And then you're going to get an incident. And you're going to see footage of, and again, guys, I'm just speculating, okay? You would see images of, Downing Street being overrun, those gates being knocked over, people furious. That's going to cause a chain reaction, and it's going to make everybody get off the streets and think, you know what, guys, this revolution's happening. And guys, listen, don't think that because, it doesn't look like it's happening. I've seen this in so many different countries, where a population looks calm, everything looks calm, and literally something happens, and at the drop of a hat, you have got, it is literally on flames. And don't forget, a lot of this will be externally influenced as well. So we'll have external influences from Russia, we'll have external influences from China, Iran. All our enemy nations will be wanting this to happen. And as you push these things closer and closer, they happen anyway. You only need to reach a critical mass, and then that's it. Everybody's out on the streets. It's, guys, right now in the United Kingdom, I'm not saying it's going to happen soon. I'm saying it. I think there's a good possibility that this could happen before certainly before the next election. And I keep saying, I don't think we're going to get to another election with this government. I really don't. There's too many things that are too many question marks. First of all, I don't see Keir Starmer as a war leader. I mean, I wouldn't trust him with a bag of chips. I really wouldn't. I mean, if I asked him to go to the shop for me for a bag of chips, which I probably would, guys, I've seen him, and if it was a choice, if we were sat in a room and it was me or him going to the shop for a bag of chips, I'd say, look here, you might be the Prime Minister, that you're going to the shop. I'm not going to the shop. You will go to the shop. I will give you £1 and I will expect all of my change. But yeah, that's the situation in the United Kingdom right now. And we've got this farmers' protest. It's on, it's off, it's on, it's off. Again, when we are stopping people, giving people the ability to protest, I mean, can you imagine this now? If the farmers join forces with the perceived far right, because I don't think there is such thing as a far right, but can you imagine now if these join forces and you've got those big tractors ripping the gates off Downing Street? It's absolutely insane what we've got rumbling right now and what's brewing. What's that pot that's simmering? There's just more and more ingredients going into that pot on a daily basis. I've heard... Guys, look, I support the farmers, and whatever the farmers do in protest, I will 100% support that. Now, I've heard that the farmers are going to stop producing food now. They're going to starve the supermarkets. They're going to stop producing milk, stop producing eggs. I've heard all sorts of rumors. I don't know if this is going to come into fruition. I don't know if it's going to move forwards, but that's what they're saying. And guys, do you know what? We are at a stage in the United Kingdom right now where something has to give. It really does. Some people need a beacon of light. People need something to hope towards. People need something to aspire to be. People need some hope for their children, for their families, for themselves, because right now in the United Kingdom, there really is no hope. So let me come on to Ukraine, guys. So there was an article earlier on today saying that US military contractors will help to repair, a lot of the machinery, a lot of the kit and equipment that's been donated to the Ukrainians. Now, I've been saying this is an inevitability. There is no way that this can't happen, but this is how you see mission creep. This is how the United States keep their toes in Ukraine, but officially they're not in Ukraine because they've got no military there. This happened in Iraq in I want to say 2011 or it might be, I can't remember. Sometime in Iraq there, I think was it Obama? I can't remember. But yeah, it was Obama. Obama said, right, we're gonna start getting our troops out of Iraq. I think was it Obama? Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah, it's Obama. So slowly, US troops started to leave Iraq. But what happened? They just moved in military contractors and they did the exact same jobs in the exact same bases. And rather than wearing military uniform, they were just wearing 511 shirts and khaki trousers. So that's kind of the direction that these guys are going. Now they're saying initially that these and I'll put the links in the description, guys. They're saying that these military contractors, these private military contractors, they're just going to be there to repair, things like the F-16s, the Patriot missile system, potentially some howitzers. There's a is it a howitzer? I think is it an AS? I can't remember, but there's a tracked artillery piece that's really difficult to repair. Now they're saying that these are just going in. These guys are just technicians. These technicians are just going in there to repair these equipment, and that's all they're doing. But, as part of this contract, they will have to have security. Now, as part of that contract, for the insurance purposes of US citizens going into Ukraine, they will have to have an accredited security provider. And this is how they word it, guys, and this is how they move into it. So those security providers who are accredited, well, guess what? I can pretty much guarantee you, none of the Ukrainians will. No Ukrainian. Well, I'm not. Do you know what, guys? I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say that no Ukrainian company has the correct US credentials to provide security for US citizens in Ukraine. It's just going to come down to an insurance policy, because the insurance policies will not recognize the training or the competency of the Ukrainians. And again, who's going to provide this manpower in Ukraine anyway? I mean, they're struggling for guys to fill out their, they're struggling for guys to go to the front line. They're struggling for soldiers. They're really, 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 they don't have the manpower to hold the Russians off right now. I'll come onto the map, guys, after this, and I'll just show you how much ground the Russians have actually taken in the last couple of months, and it's absolutely insane. So what will happen is the person who's bidding for this contract, he will have, I can pretty much guarantee you, he will have a friend or he will set up a company himself that is a security provider, and he will get all those qualifications, or he will buy another company. It doesn't really matter. This will all be done in the United States in the bidding process. Those guys, the security contractor and the guys providing the training, they'll be friends, and they'll just say, right, okay, we're going to go out there, and all this security then is going to be done by, potentially US citizens, or maybe, I want to say they can use Ukrainians as third-party nationals, but I just don't see it. I don't see the Ukrainians being able to give men of fighting age to the security contractors. I just don't see it, guys. I really don't. I think all the men of fighting age will be fighting in Ukraine. So that means they're going to have to bring US citizens in, or potentially from a third country. I think that initially they'll use US citizens. Now, once these contractors are in place and the US security personnel are providing, security, where does it go from there? What is providing security? Are you just waiting? Are you just doing base security? Okay, does that mean you're going to go and walk around the perimeter in the morning to make sure there's been no suspicious packages left against your fence? Okay, how far away from your fence are you going to go? Oh, we just 5 meters. Okay, what about 10 meters? What about 50 meters? How about you get a car and you drive around? How about you get a car and you drive a couple of kilometers into the village and make sure that you see where I'm going? This is called mission creep, and it happens in every conflict. So at some point pretty soon, you're going to see US boots on the ground, armed US personnel, and they're going to be providing security to these military contractors who are repairing these weapon systems. This is a way to get boots on the ground. The United States, they can say, we don't have any military in there. Then this will just be buried in a ton of paperwork. Now, the problems will arise when the Russians start to target these locations, because in fairness, guys, these are fair game. Now, what I think would be key would be if Donald Trump would allow this to happen. In the context that his call with Putin, he may say, okay, you can take this ground, but don't attack our contractors. I don't know if that's going to happen, but what I do know is the fighting will not stop, guys. It can't stop. And again, today I heard these people on the media. I think it was Sky News, and they were talking about this peace deal whereby Ukraine Ukraine concedes the land that's already been taken. Guys, how many times have I said there's nothing stopping the Russians from pushing through up to the River Dnipro? And that's true. Also, if the Ukrainians had the manpower, there's nothing to stop the Ukrainians pushing right up to Moscow. There is no features there. There's no mountainous regions. There's no huge rivers. There's no huge lakes. So this works both ways. That's why, at a bare minimum, Putin would want to push up to the River Dnipro. Right now, there is no peace deal. There is no lines that can be drawn in the sand. There's absolutely no deal that can be made in Ukraine right now. So either Putin needs to push up to the River Dnipro, or there's going to be, or there can be no negotiations. But the problem there is, if Russia does push up to the River Dnipro, that kind of means that there's going to be, NATO boots on the ground, because I don't see any other way that, that the Ukrainians could be, I don't see the argument then that Zelensky, that Macron, I don't even want to say Britain, because right now I don't even see Britain as a credible country anymore. But there's no argument there for for the rest of NATO, the European Union, whatever you want to call these guys. I think the official name is the European the European security scheme. I think that's what they're calling it. I think that's what the new NATO is going to be. I don't know. But what you can guarantee is NATO is pretty much finished, over. It's done. People need to stop talking about it because it's not relevant anymore. I think in Article 6 of, so everybody talks about these articles in NATO, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think it goes up to 12. So Article 6 in the NATO memorandum, it says that countries must form alliances and pacts to defend themselves internally. It's worded something like that. So what that basically means is you're on your own and you need to find your own military pacts, your own military alliances, which is what Zelensky has been doing. You know, he's been going to Poland, he's been going to the Baltic states, obviously he's been coming to Britain. I mean, poor Zelensky, how many British prime ministers has Zelensky met over the last couple of years? I mean, that guy, you know, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak, and now, wow, I mean, that is embarrassing. And now, you know, I can't even remember his name, Keir Starmer. Absolutely insane. Guys, the fighting is not going to stop in Ukraine because it can't stop. So let me just go onto the share screen here, guys. Now, I know I always do this, but I think we need to contextualize how much ground the Ukrainians have actually lost. So this is from the 15th of the 7th. So this is the ground here. You've got Pokrovs here, and I'm just going to, hang on. No, that'll be better. So I'm just going to fast forward right up until today. And guys, watch this ground here. Just watch how quickly the Russians are moving. So just take a mental picture of where that ground is. And it's just every day an absolute onslaught. Now, can you imagine if this had have been taken quickly? If this had have been taken quickly, which I think the Russians could, if this had have been taken quickly, there would be mass international outcry and all hell would be breaking loose. But because the Russians are doing it slowly, nobody seems to care. Now, look how much ground they've taken. So they're doing a pincer movement here, guys. So this town, Kukurov, I think that's how I'm pronouncing it, they're pincering that. Now, this is a classic movement that the Russians are doing. So they come from the north, they come from the south, where it's relatively, relatively easy going. And then once they're at a sufficient distance past, they just close these pincers. And then the town in the middle is totally encircled and there's no way out. Now, predominantly when these towns are evacuated, it's always in the last couple of days when they take the casualties. But guys, you know, there really is no way that the Ukrainians from this map, there isn't a peace deal to be had. Look at this river here. Look, the River Dnipro runs all that the River Dnipro is a natural barrier. That's what Putin's looking for. And of course, you know, that's what the Ukrainians need as well. You need these natural barriers when you're planning any defensive positions. I mean, just look at the width of the Dnipro here by Kremenchuk. Like, can you imagine trying to mount an assault over this river? Forget about it. Even at the smallest parts here, it's like, at least 500 meters wide, this river. It's a huge river. It's hard to cross a river. You know, it's even harder to cross a river when there's an enemy military at the other side trying to prevent you. So right now, when people are saying Putin wants to, if Ukraine's going to concede this ground, why would he? Why would Putin want this ground? You know, there's nothing there for him to defend. There's literally nothing but open fields. You need something that's defensible. You need something that you can put a defensive line behind. And this River Dnipro, to me, that is the bare minimum that he could have, the River Dnipro. So until the Russians get up to the River Dnipro, there's going to be no peace negotiations, and nobody's going to come to the table and talk about peace, because nobody can talk about the peace. There's nothing there, guys, to talk about. And everybody, I'm sick of seeing these people on the media saying, the Ukrainians will have to concede the ground. No, they won't. Russia won't want that. Russia will not want that as a peace agreement, because there isn't any there. remember, the Russians are really sneaky. They are like, Putin's like has a masterclass in deception. He, like, I can remember back in I want to say 2014. If you guys can remember 2014, there was a big there was a load of white trucks ready to go into Ukraine. And the international observers from the OSCE, they said, whoa, hang on a minute, Putin, what's in these trucks? And Putin was saying, it's humanitarian aid for Ukrainians. And the OSCE are like, what? And Putin was like, yes, it's humanitarian aid for Ukrainians. We are helping the refugee crisis as per our obligation. So the OSCE were like, well, hang on a minute. Well, right, just stop. You can't bring those trucks in. We need to inspect them first. And so then Putin came out and he's, and he publicized that. He said, the OSCE are stopping our humanitarian aid going to Ukrainians. And, I spoke to some of the guys who actually, went in the back and checked these vehicles. And, so they went and they looked what's in the back of these trucks, these huge, big, articulated lorries. And, each one, but they were said there was not much in. They're like each truck would have like a couple of boxes of sleeping bags, or, they could have probably fit everything into one, into one bag, one truck. Anyway, so they were like, right, well, okay, off you go. Right, fine, off you go. So guess what? Nobody checked those trucks leaving. The rumor is that Putin dismantled a whole ammunition factory, put it in the back of those trucks and drove it out. So yes, he was, giving humanitarian aid, but what did he take out of that country in the back of those trucks? And this is kind of the problem, Our politicians work on a 4-year cycle. How many prime ministers has Putin outlasted? How many politicians has Putin outlasted? And that's the problem. We can't, our Western democracies, they can't compete with Putin's word games and his tongue twisters and his little psychological games. You just can't win that, because he's a better operator. I mean, Who's gonna win an argument between Putin and Keir Starmer? It's not even a close match. Putin would literally beat him up in an argument and then judo through him all over the place, and Keir Starmer he'd probably wee himself anyway. But anyway, guys, that is the jux of this video, guys. All right, nobody's got this thing in Iran. You need to keep watching this in Iran, because that is going to keep on escalating. Look at the rhetoric now from the mainstream media that's coming from Iran. Trump's not even inaugurated yet. The situation in the United Kingdom, it is absolutely simmering. And where I live now, people come and talk to me, and I'm recognizable. And the thing that they always say, every time somebody comes and talks to me, they all say, how long do I think Keir Starmer has? I think he's got quite a while at the moment, because things need to get a lot worse at the moment in the United Kingdom, and they will. But that timeline, I can't see anything at the moment that could, apart from another one of these mass incidents. And unfortunately, these mass incidents will happen again. So maybe not the next mass incident, maybe the one after that. I think that's when, that's when Keir Starmer will be ousted, but he won't be ousted. He won't be ousted peacefully. Let's just leave it like that. So, like I said, the jux of this video is US. I don't know what I'm going to put in the thumbnail. I might put military contractors, or is using the word mercenaries too inflammatory? I think I'll just put military contractors, because that's what the mainstream are saying. But don't forget, when you're talking about military contractors, they will have to have security with them. Their insurance will not allow them to go into that country without accredited competent security. That means they will have to be, if they're using a US based insurance company, they will have to have a US based security company. Guys, It is that simple. There's no other way around it. You know, the US-based insurance companies are not going to recognize, Yuri and his security company in Ukraine. Unfortunately, that is just the case. I'm not saying that anything's wrong with, Ukrainian security, Ukrainian forces, or anything like that. What I'm saying is the insurance companies won't recognize them, and they're not going to get that contract without insurance. It's just the way it works, guys. Okay. Always follow the money. And then once that happens, you're going to get mission creep. You're going to get things expanding. Why? Because they're getting paid to expand. So that's the situation on the ground in Ukraine, guys. I think we forget how much ground the Ukrainians are losing. Guys, that is it for today. I'm going to max to grid. I'll get you guys another video later.